The Vital Way, where ancient wisdom meets the cutting edge to optimize your vitality and performance. There are no right ways, just better ways.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the Vital Way podcast. I'm Logan Christopher, here along with Dr. Greg Carter. He is a board-certified doctor of Oriental medicine, and he has owned and operated multidisciplinary clinics consisting of MDs, chiropractic, physical therapy, along with acupuncture and Oriental medicine, added to focus on different aspects like physical medicine, rehabilitation, pain management, family practice, cosmetic medicine, and anti-aging medicine. We have some exciting stuff to talk about today. We're going to be talking about immortality. So welcome to the call, Dr. Greg.
Logan, thank you so much. I'm humbled and honored to be invited to the Vital Way podcast. I genuinely and sincerely mean that.
Excellent. Well, can you give a bit more background on yourself, people not familiar with your story? What led you to getting involved in anti-aging medicine and so much more?
Absolutely. It'll be my pleasure. Well, first of all, specifically what led me to anti-aging medicine is I think aging is a mistake. I don't know who came up with it, but I don't want to participate. I've written numerous sternly worded letters to the management and nobody's responded. But the fact of the matter is we have all been convinced as a population that aging is inevitable. And when you really get down to it, Logan, aging is a measure of the passage of time. It is a chronological metric. And with regards to unalterability, you're right. That does not change. We will pass year after year after year, and we will assimilate a new, addition to our, quote, age designation. But what people seem to take along with that idea is that with each passing year, we must just passively accept the fact that the degradation that typically goes along with the passage of time is an inevitability, and it's simply not true. The velocity and intensity of degradation, what we consider aging, has been shown time and time again from layman to PhD to be absolutely modifiable, dependent upon how diligent you, as the individual, want to take your personal responsibility of your own health into your own hands, doing your due diligence, finding portals of credible information, and ultimately, you'll have to do an N=1 experiment, which means you'll have to see what works for you. The reason for that is people have certain common denominators, and while that is absolutely true, people are engines of infinite possibility, and along the gradient of the bell curve of humanity, there's going to be some generalized and predictable outcomes to exposure to a toxin, a nutrient, or a medical treatment, but there are going to be outliers along each edge of the bell curve. People who will have unbelievably fantastic, noteworthy outcomes, and people who will have no outcome or a bad outcome. I myself am approaching my 50s. I'm in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've been in Jiu-Jitsu since UFC 1, and everybody in there today is in their 20s. They're all trying to murder the old guy. So in order to remain competitive, I alter my nutritional intake dependent upon what is my goal. I alter my nutritional supplementation, my herbal supplementation, and if necessary, and if it's clinically indicated, I submit to medical treatment when necessary. I tell all of my patients, look, if I get hit by a car, please call an ambulance. Don't call somebody who needs to be seen until after I'm stable. And it's funny and it's tongue-in-cheek, and I mean that sincerely. How I got into complementary alternative medicine is another story, and integrated medicine. I'm not sure. Is that what you'd like to hear about?
Sure, just I guess briefly.
Sure. In brief, I grew up in regular medicine. I'm half Filipino, and you may or may not be aware of this, but apparently it was practically a federal law. If you grew up in the Philippines, you either went in the Navy or you went into medicine. My family went into medicine. I have a long line of allopathic or traditional medicine relatives, and I grew up in that traditional healthcare model. It's a great model when it comes to disease management, when it comes to chronic disease or dysfunction or just I want to feel better, it falls short in many areas. As an example, I was in the Marine Corps, and I got out after Desert Storm, and I had kind of an understandably violent outlet, and they didn't really debrief Marines back then, and they really apparently don't really debrief them too well now. Listen, killing in the service of your country, okay. Having homicidal ideation because somebody cuts you off in traffic when you're out in the real world, not okay. Recognizing that I needed kind of a controlled violent outlet for my tendencies, I joined a judo class at USF. About my third year of judo, a kid flipped me. I injured my back. I went to my mom, a board-certified internal medicine doctor, and no lie, Logan, she gave me Motrin, 2 Motrin. And as cliche as it sounds, see me in the morning. And shockingly, and I put her sitting down, it did not work. After that, she sent me to my Uncle Dan, also a relative and an orthopedic surgeon, a guy who was at my baptism for Pete's sake and had no financial reason to say what he said. He told me after shooting an MRI, without question, right, you have screwed the pooch on your back, and you need me to operate on you. Now, this guy wasn't going to get a dime from that. He just believed that the only solution to my thoracic pain that I'd been saddled with for 6 weeks was to cut me open when I was in my mid-20s. I said, listen, thank you. I'm going to take it under advisement. And in kind of a mental fog, I drove around town trying to think, what am I going to do? Now, as you can imagine, if you grew up in a traditional medical paradigm your whole life, you would have heard nothing but terrible things about doctors of chiropractic, naturopaths, etc. And I was no different. I had heard horrible, horrible things about them. But I knew they had something to do with back. And I snuck into a chiropractor's office just a couple blocks down the street from my family's office. I ran in there like a man possessed. I ran up to the front desk. I said, hey, listen, I need to talk to the doctor. And the lady, thinking maybe this dude's a serial killer or something, called the doctor up to the front, came up, brought me in the back, asked me what my problem was. I said, look, 3 doors down, Dr. Linda Carter, that's my mom. You know, we're medical doctors. If anybody in my family finds out I'm here, there's going to be real ramifications for me. I hurt my back. I hear you guys do something with back. Is that true? That's how ignorant I was as to complementary alternative medicine. And the guy brought me in the back. He gave me my first adjustment. And this excruciating, debilitating pain that I'd been saddled with for 6 weeks was eliminated in 30 seconds. And I decided right then and there, you know, maybe it's not that I'm being lied to, but there's something else out there, and I'm going to find out what that something else is. And that's what started my quest along the gradient of searching for evidence-based, efficacious therapies that are outside of the traditional medical paradigm. And again, I don't want anybody to think I'm throwing traditional medicine under the bus. I'm not. I think we've got the greatest medical system in the world when it comes to chronic injury, catastrophic illness, disease, etc. In an emergency situation, you want Western medicine, but to deal with chronic disease and disorder, or to just want to feel better, complementary alternative medicine, in many cases, is proven to be vastly superior in its ability to create effective change, noticeable, statistically significant change. Your pine pollen as an example. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, there's so many cool things off of that. And I agree with you. There's some great things about Western medicine, what they can do as far as like life-saving, dangerous accidents. It's pretty amazing. But yeah, in many cases, herbs or other alternative medicines, you know, it works very well in chronic diseases, and you know, you got to change lifestyle, and those things is really going to work a lot better than a pill or replacing an organ, except where it's needed.
Absolutely.
So yeah, let's get into immortality. How did you get more into this field of anti-aging? And then what are the 4 bridges to immortality?
Sure, absolutely. Well, let me back up a bit. The original thrust of my practice was physical medicine rehabilitation. I wanted to see under a integrative multidisciplinary model how well would chiropractic, oriental medicine, physical therapy, and traditional medicine work, kind of a team or co-joined effort to bring a patient from where you are to where you're wanting to be. Along the gradient of that is all of the doctors who joined this group. We all started to age. We all started to not be able to recover from illness and injury. We all started to get kind of interested in, testosterone replacement therapy. Anthony Robbins has a quote, you get what you look for. We started looking for solutions on this new thing called Google back then. And we stumbled across the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. The American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine is the spearhead of longevity and rejuvenative medicine in the United States, probably even the world. We immediately went to our first conference in Las Vegas. We all joined, and we've been hooked ever since. Since that time, in the dark ages of the early 2000s, we have experienced greater advances in medicine and healthcare in the first 14 years of the 21st century than the entirety of human history. These advancements happen in conjunction with advancements in technology. And the reason that I got into it, it's purely selfish. I'd love to sit up here and say altruistically I wanted to help my patients. That's a given. I want to help my patients, Logan. Ultimately, you can only help people after you've helped yourself. And nobody is going to listen to a doctor about the health of his bones. It's the orthopedic surgeon talking to him that's got a hunchback as a result of, degradation to his osseous and cartilaginous structure that he brought about himself. We're going to be talking about health, we're going to be talking about longevity, we're going to be talking about rejuvenative medicine. We wanted to be certified in that. We wanted to be on the cutting edge, and we wanted to apply those things to ourselves, and to that end, we did. As time has passed, the myth of immortality has come down out of the stratosphere into tangible reality. Now, you've got to look at two unrelated fields in order to grasp this concept. The first field is technology. And by technology, I'm talking about the type of technology that we're talking on right now and that everybody's listening on right now, which is computer technology. And then we have to talk about biology, and I'm going to address technology first. In the 20th century, before the 1950s, technology was advancing and doubling in price performance capacity maybe once every 3 years. After the 1950s, it was doubling in price performance capacity maybe every 2 years. Towards the end of the 20th century, it was doubling in price performance capacity every year. In the first decade of the 21st century, it was every 10 months. Now we're down to every 8 months. While all that technology is shrinking at 100% in three-dimensional volume per decade. So what that means is, when I was born in 1966, if you wanted a computer that had essentially the processing power of the watch that you're wearing, that computer was the size of a building, and you had to be a PhD level student in MIT in order to access it. So today, let's say we have a patient who is a Parkinson's patient, okay, and that Parkinson's patient is suffering from the debilitating disease of Parkinson's. They're suffering from the tremors, which result in loss of function and personal embarrassment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. 20 years ago, we really couldn't do that much about it. 10 years ago, really not that much. Today, we can implant a chip about the size of a pea inside their brain, about the size of a postage stamp, it's about the thickness of a postage stamp, and that patient, while sitting in Starbucks next to you drinking a mocha latte, can be on his laptop wirelessly downloading updates to his chip and uploading them into his brain while we're all just hanging around. That's today. Okay, if somebody had a heart attack, as an example, 20 years ago, they'd suffer from something called reduced ejection fraction or heart failure. We really couldn't do that much about it. 5 years ago, we really couldn't do that much about it. Today, in certain countries, we can scrape that patient's skin cells, stick them in a petri dish, add 4 genes to it, create something called induced pluripotent cells, add a couple of heart-healthy tissue cells to it, watch them replicate, stick them in the patient's arm, 6 weeks later, brand new heart. I And that's happening right now. Let's say somebody was born or lost their hearing, a little 7-year-old girl, for example. What could we do about it in the 20th century? Nothing. Today, we can give her a cochlear implant, basically a bionic ear. So we have cyborgs walking among us. You wouldn't think of them as cyborgs because we think of cyborgs as Skynet Terminators. But they are cyborgs nonetheless. And the more that we can merge our biology with our technology, the closer we're going to get to what's called radical life extension and radical life expansion. Now, if all this sounds very futuristic and kind of like science fiction, Time magazine has done no less than half a dozen cover articles on immortality by 2045. Peter Diamandis, the founder of the X Prize, has funded this, and Google has sank billions of dollars into the Immortality project. So it's not part of the vernacular of the cornucopia of the common man because it's out of reach of the common man in terms of, reality. But so were airplanes before we created airplanes. So was the concept that the Earth wasn't the center of the universe. All of the things I'm saying seem very unreasonable. They seem very futuristic and space age, but they are happening. And because of not just the advances of technology, Logan, but the compressed velocity of the advancement of technology, we will be able to access radical life extension and radical life expansion by 2045. Your life expectancy will escape at a velocity of a year for every year of life. That is de facto immortality. Unless you get hit by a car or you jump out of a window, if you are breathing and you have the money to pay for it, in essence, you'll be able to live forever. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and opens up 100 new ones.
By all means.
I've heard of the Hayflick limit. Are you familiar with that?
Sorry, the what?
Hayflick limit, or it was a scientist, and they're looking at extending the life of the cells, and there was sort of a natural stop to aging at like 120. They couldn't see it going beyond that, but you're saying with technology, we should be able to surpass that. And I guess other question, is it really so immortality, so live as long as you want, or is it just a radical extension, like maybe 250 years? But I mean, I guess it's kind of who knows at that point what might happen.
Yeah,
so,
that's
what
a
are
great
your thoughts
question.
on that?
Let me address the first point, and I'm going to speak in general terms, and because of the limitation, I don't want to create a bunch of citations. We can do that later, but fundamentally, mankind is programmed to start dying around the age of 30, okay? It is not in the evolutionary interest of the species for a person to exist much longer than that. The reason for that is because our operating system, which we call DNA, and its computer programs, which we call genes, haven't been updated in the last 10,000 years. Our bodies don't know that we're not walking around the savannah barefoot, running away from saber-toothed tigers. So it is in the interest of the species for us to start to die around the age of our 30s, so our 12 to 15-year-old kids who are having kids of their own can enjoy the resources of the tribe. Now, what's interesting about that is when you look down into the genetics of the human, it's theorized based on telomere length that we can live to about 148 years old. Well, why the dichotomy? I mean, how do you juxtapose those two? How do you reconcile those two facts? Here's how you do it. Mother Nature wants you to die around 30 so that your kids who are having kids of their own can enjoy the resources of the tribe. Father Time, like any good dad, has given us a back door. And that back door is if you eat organic fruits and vegetables and you walk barefoot and absorb the human resonance and electrons of the earth, and you detox, you drink mineral-dense water as if you're living in Vilcabamba, then you have the genetic potential to make it till your telomeres run out, which is about 148. What technology is going to allow us to do, Logan, is add telomeres to our degrading telomere line. And if you Google age-reversed mice, we have today, this is the future, we've taken the equivalent of 70-year-old mice and reverted them back to 17-year-old mice, utilizing very similar technology. Now, Logan, we can do that in mice. We we are right on the cusp, we're on the verge of being able to do that in people. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and probably for people that aren't familiar with telomeres, would you mind explaining what those are and how they work? And I guess also the process of extending them?
In general, as every time a cell replicates, okay, the DNA, which looks like a twisted ladder, splits apart and then is copied and 2 new strands of DNA are formed. When that happens, there's a little ribbon at the end of the DNA, and on that ribbon there's these little pearl-like structures called telomeres. One of those telomeres will drop off, and when you get to the end of those little pearls, there's no more replication and you're dead. Okay? There's no more opportunity for biology to replicate. All right? To speak to how science is adding telomeres currently, I can't speak to that because I'm not involved in research and development. I've read the studies, I've read the literature. We know that it's happening. It's not a secret by any stretch of the imagination. And if you were to be the kind of person that is personally interested in optimal human performance, taking supplements that you know are going to create an enhanced physical and mental and emotional state in this moment, you are by extension extending your life. You are by extension engaged in longevity rejuvenative medicine. I'm just engaged in all of those things with the idea of making it to 2045. I don't need to live forever, Logan, but a couple hundred extra years would be nice. There's some books I'd like to read, maybe Ernest Hemingway's Old Man and Sea, so I can see what all the hype is about. I mean, we live in an incredibly busy world. Who has time? The most valuable asset we have is not money, it's not real estate, it is time. And our technology, both the synthetic computer side and the biologic side, is coming to a nexus point, a singularity, where they're going to meet in a way that allows us to, in essence, live forever. So I don't think that, and I haven't read anything suggesting that we'll enjoy immortality to the point where if you cut off somebody's limb, we'll be able to grow a new one like a salamander. But we have theorized and we have shown in lower level animals that we can reverse aging. And by reverse aging, I'm talking about the degradation associated with aging. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So, curious, in what I've sort of researched or read or heard in different places, there's kind of some different theories on aging, like the telomere, that's obviously one of the bigger ones, but there's also some other areas that I guess people are looking at in order to be able to stop or reverse the aging process. Could you explain what some of those other areas of importance may be?
Absolutely, and it's a great question, and thank you for bringing it up. Telomere shortening is one component of aging. We tend to think of aging as a people as one thing. We're aging. We're getting old. Hey, man, what's going on with you? My back hurts. Well, you're getting old. Hey, go run after that ball. I can't run as fast as I could. Well, you're getting old. And we think of getting old as just one thing. It's not. It comes with different things. And we don't know what all those things are. We know that the oxidation theory plays a role in degrading human tissue, in essence, aging people. We know that telomere shortening has a component in aging people. We know of about 10 to 12 different hypotheses that contribute to the aging process. And there are entire teams who are well-funded by huge multinational conglomerates, all designed to study one or two aspects of the aging process. So it's important to know that aging isn't one thing, it's a conglomerate of different things. And of the conglomerate of different things, telomere shortening and telomere lengthening is probably some of the most well-studied, followed by oxidation and antioxidation. So, those are the areas that a person would want to focus on. With respect to that, Logan, there have been elucidated 3 or 4 bridges to radical life extension and radical life expansion, de facto immortality. It just depends on who you're reading. It depends on on who you talk to. I like the 4-bridge explanation. I think that it resonates with people more. Certainly it resonates with me more. I could address that if you're interested in it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Fundamentally, 4 bridges of immortality have been elucidated in the literature. Bridge number 1 is essentially lifestyle, changing what you eat, changing what you drink, stop smoking, stop drinking so much bourbon, Greg, and getting sleep when it's appropriate. That you yourself can personally control. And we can control our thoughts, and we can control what we put in our mouths for the most part. Bridge number 2 is proper medical care when clinically indicated, getting surgery if it's absolutely necessary. And what isn't really thought of, but equally important, is utilization of proper nutritional supplementation and herbs in order to extend your life. And as far as human history has gone, that is as far as mankind has gotten. We've gotten to bridge 2. We're now at bridge 3, where we're merging our biology with our technology at the cellular level. The cochlear implant, as I mentioned earlier, the Parkinson's implant, technology called grounding that's forwarded by Dr. Clint Ober, PhD, and Dr. Stephen Sinatra, MD, PhD, where a person lays on a sheet and can absorb electrons from the human resonance of the earth into their body. And these are, in essence, mechanical antioxidants. And you can absorb more antioxidants utilizing grounding technology in a single setting than you can orally ingest something like a bottle full of vitamin C. So by merging our biology with our technology at the cellular level, we have in essence bridged the gap into bridge 3. Bridge number 4 is going subcellular into the nucleus, utilizing nanotechnology to repair DNA at the level of DNA and the telomeres. Once we have accomplished that with regularity and reproducibility and efficacy, we will be at bridge 4 and we will be at immortality. Again, lest anybody think this is my personal opinion, you could go to this little-known publication called Time Magazine and look up Immortality by 2045. It is a cover story. It looks like Neo from The Matrix with a plug in the back of his neck, and all of the articles that they've written surrounding that.
Mm-hmm. So, an interesting thing, you're mentioning the grounding, and what I'm seeing in a lot of different health circles, right, is that a lot of our technology or different things that we're doing is trying to mimic what's actually happening in nature. So you mentioned, naturally we die. That's kind of a natural part of human as well as any other creature's existence. But by earthing, which we can do, just go outside and stand barefoot on the ground, or we can create some technology so we can enjoy that inside of our homes. Another example would be I've started wearing amber shaded glasses at night, which block the blue light spectrum, which normally if you're getting that into your eyes, it's suppressing melatonin, so it's affecting sleep. And the amazing thing was, like, I sleep really well, but I've noticed a difference just in wearing these glasses. And the idea was, many years ago we didn't have blue light emitting devices that were around us 24/7, and even if we stared at things like the starlight or the fire, it's not the intensity of light or the same spectrum color of light that would affect us negatively. So it seems a lot of our technology is it's trying to get us back to nature, albeit in sort of a roundabout way. So I'm just curious your thoughts on it. So it seems though, with, of course, if we're going to nanotechnology, it really has to be in alignment with our nature, with our biology, but at the same time should allow us to go much further in the direction of anti-aging.
Yeah, you're 100% right, Logan. The fact of the matter is technology, since our first technology of fire, has always been a double-edged sword. That fire technology that we utilized to warm our caves, hearts, and hearths was the same fire that we utilized to burn down the villages of our next closest competitor. So, the thing is how a person utilizes technology is what outcome they're going to get. The example that you use, grounding. What's better, walking barefoot along the savannah or lying on a grounding sheet while you're sleeping? Well, the answer is both are better. You should be able to, at some point in your life, walk around barefoot in your backyard without fear of absorbing, xenoestrogens from, the Roundup Ready grass. But at the same time, some people are busy to the point where they are just walking around life, existing in a state of suspended animation of the earth, and they never come in contact with the earth. We have rubber-soled shoes. We live in concrete jungles. Some people never come in contact with the earth. Those people, they need a grounding sheet. I agree with you. Moving yourself toward a more naturalistic state seems to be more efficacious. We were, with very good intentions, seeking to improve the lives of humanity with this single phrase post-World War II, better living through chemistry. I don't think it was malicious in any way. I think that the intentions of those scientists and those governmental agencies at that time was rooted in the benefit of humanity in general and Americans specifically, okay? And we just didn't know what we didn't know. Take a look at the lipid hypothesis and the 7-country study. I mean, there were some, there was a little bit of a shell game there, but ultimately, given the science of the day, was it really such a stretch? Was it really such a leap? You look at Dr. Atkins' book in the 80s. I think Dr. Atkins' book in the 1980s, given the science of the day, I think Dr. Atkins came to the most logical conclusions he could come to. But he didn't know about gluconeogenesis, what we know about gluconeogenesis. And nutritional ketosis today is really the modern day culmination of what Dr. Atkins was attempting to achieve in the 20th century. So technology, it's a double-edged sword, Logan. We should seek as naturalistic a lifestyle as possible in order to live in alignment with our naturalistic self. At the same time, we're living in the 21st century. We're taking a bath in EMF every day, and I, for one, am not prepared to move to Vilcabamba and just say no to technology. So, right now, the question you got to ask yourself is, given the exposures that I'm faced with on a daily basis, what is available to me within my grasp in terms of technology, like grounding sheets, as well as herbology, something like thyme pollen if you're a guy, okay, and nutritional supplementation that will take me from the state that I'm at currently that I'm not happy with to the state you want to be at, which is optimal physical performance. And when you look at your frame of reference from that perspective, that you are responsible for you, and you, for to a large degree, can control your physiologic outcomes, then a person will start to take a different tactic. He'll start to do more investigation. Well, what is this thyme pollen? What is this ashwagandha? What is the proof behind it? What is everybody else saying? Some people will just go read the reviews. And because the reviews are positive and they come from a credible source, they'll go ahead and they'll try an ashwagandha. They'll try a thyme pollen. And the majority of people who are looking for those things are looking for them because inherently they're in need for what those things can treat and supplement. And they'll probably get a good result. Does it mean everybody will get a good result? Absolutely not. Because as I mentioned earlier, people are engines of infinite possibility. Humanity lives along a bell curve gradient. Nothing works for everybody, and nothing doesn't work for everybody. You've got to have a readiness and a willingness and an enablement to do your research, feel confident in what you're reading, and take the next step. Altering your diet, utilizing nutritional supplementation, seeking herbs that are consistent with the goals that you are attempting to achieve, and giving it a shot. Most people are going to find that these outcomes they're looking for can be readily achieved with just a little bit of effort.
Yeah. Well, let's get into a little bit more the practical. All these technologies coming, just got to survive till 2045, right? Then we all become cyborgs and everything's good. Kind of joking, but obviously, I'm with you. The technology that's around today is pretty crazy if you look into some of the things. And they said accelerating, the future is going to be exciting if nothing else. So what are some things that people can do to, one, preserve their telomeres at this point, and I guess lower oxidation so that they're not over-oxidizing? What are some of the practices that you recommend for people?
I think that practically the first thing is you've got to decide to be healthier. You've got to make the decision to become a healthier person. And when you do that, then you'll start looking for those things that are going to bring you to that state of health that you want. And let's just, since we already started talking about it, talk about the bridges, okay? Once you make the decision to become a more healthier person, then look at your immediate surroundings and say, what can I change? The first thing is recognition that it's very likely grains do not belong in the human body. And the elimination of grains, especially gluten-containing grains, is probably a key component to a person regaining control of their health. I mean, just as an example, most animals that ingest grains are ruminating animals. They have plates, not teeth. You know, they have 4 stomachs, not 1. They walk around on 4 legs, not 2. I mean, there's really nothing in the human frame that suggests we're supposed to thrive on grains. Because we're the highest of all life forms on Earth, because we have an omnivorous capacity, we can survive on grains, sure. And grains are a technology, and like I said, that technology is a double-edged sword. It allows nomadic hunter-gatherers to settle into societies that would provide for art, science, literature, and infrastructure. But as a mechanism of your health, making different choices culinarily is probably the most important thing a person can do to enhance longevity in the long term, as well as just enhancing your day-to-day outcomes. And you cannot believe how many people that we see on a daily basis who have a willingness to eliminate grains from their life and experience incredible super physiologic outcomes in terms of their own health picture. So I would suggest to your listeners that the avoidance of clearly non-physiologically appropriate foods is critical. Unfortunately, Logan, there is no such thing as a pizza plant. I have yet to be able to find the macaroni and cheese bush. I mean, you know, there's no spaghetti tree, and I just cannot find these things. And it's because they don't exist in nature, okay? And because they don't exist in nature, your body uses them as a de facto toxin, and in its infinite, in its innate wisdom, it'll take what you give it, and it'll do the best it can. But it doesn't mean that in doing the best it can, that you're going to enjoy a good outcome. When you ingest grains, especially gluten-containing grains, you're going to experience the same symptoms that our forefathers experienced when they started to utilize grains, which was the introduction of rheumatoid and osteoarthritis, loss of disc height and dehydration, decreased bone density, osteopenia, osteoporosis, autoimmune disorders. All of these things happening at the end of their course. So if a person were to just eliminate processed foods or attenuate processed foods to the greatest degree possible, they would probably slow down the degradation of the aging process exponentially. I mean, that's the first thing that I would do. I would solidly investigate the amount of sleep and the quality of sleep that you need. The purpose of sleeping, which is the rebuilding of the body, can best be affected by utilizing something like grounding technology. You cannot believe the absolute difference in your rest outcomes when you sleep on a grounding sheet. Now, I myself have not used amber glasses at night, but I'm familiar with the theory behind it, and I agree. And when you take these steps to change the lifestyle and do the things within your grasp, changing what you eat, changing what you drink, changing your sleep pattern to a more physiologically appropriate manner, okay? Avoidance of smoking. Now listen, I think, Logan, because I'm a guy, I'm not a monk, okay, before any of your listeners think, you're going to see me slamming down a cigar and a small batch bourbon, because I'm a regular guy and I live in the real world. I just don't do it with a great degree of frequency. I do it limited to special occasions Bill Murray said it best. Smoking a cigar is the perk of being a man. I couldn't agree more. Smoking cigars are wonderful. Why are they wonderful? Because they contain addictive components in it that secrete super physiologic amounts of dopamine. But, you know that, then you can make the decision, I'm going to choose to smoke the cigar and drink this small batch bourbon, or I'm not going to. Without question, it is the person that allows those intoxicants to rule their life that is going to age faster than the guy who only uses them sporadically or doesn't use them at all. So the avoidance of smoking, the avoidance of alcohol, the avoidance of other intoxicants is going to slow the aging process. Probably the biggest culprit of all is going to be sugar. And sugar is apparently 8 times more addictive than cocaine. The average person, when we were evolved into Homo sapiens, was exposed to maybe 1.5 grams of sugar a week. We have kids slamming down pounds of sugar every day. The human physiology was never designed to deal with this level of sugar and the inflammatory exudate that results from it. So those are the things that you can do right now. Do those things, change your eating habits, change your drinking habits, change your sleeping habits, smoke less or stop altogether, avoid sugar whenever possible, except on those rare and special occasions like the holidays that are coming up, okay? And then move yourself into bridge 2. You will hear many people in complementary alternative medicine crucify traditional and Western medicine. It will have nothing to do with it, and I don't think that's an absolute mistake. There's a time and a place for each technology, and there's an appropriateness and an inappropriateness for it. And look, if you have a catastrophic illness or injury that is life-threatening, you need to seek traditional medical emergency care. That's really just it, because complementary alternative medicine, so-called easy, does not have answers in many cases for these things, and certainly those answers aren't standardized, where you can save a life with the same reproducibility you could do in traditional medicine. Taking medications because you have drawn yourself into an emergency state where without this medication you basically aren't going to be able to function, that's just a fact of life. Now, your doctor is not really able to take you off those medications. You're wanting to get off those harmful medications because they create long-term secondary, tertiary, and quaternary side effects. That's a good desire, but that's up to you. How you do that is by becoming more healthy. And along the way to becoming more healthy is learning how to use nutritional supplementation and herbs so that you can achieve the health goals and parameters that you want to achieve. Feeling better, performing optimally. So those are the types of things that I would encourage people to do right now. Not everybody is going to be a candidate for a Parkinson's implant. Not everybody is going to be a candidate for a popular implant, nor should they be. But for those people who are, they should allow themselves the luxury of taking advantage of it. The question really becomes, how many implants does a person get before they stop being human and start being artificial? It's a philosophical question. It maybe is not limited to the scope of this discussion, but it is one that I have an answer for. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. What, you do have an answer for that one?
Yes, I do.
All right, I got to hear that.
Well, okay. So the question is what is human? Okay, or let's start out with what is the purpose of life. The purpose of life really can only be answered 3 fundamental ways. It's religiously, philosophically, or biologically. Turns out that the first 2, religious and philosophical, are esoteric. Because they're esoteric, they're really unanswerable because there's no falsifiable test proving the validity or non-validity of those frames of reference. Biologically, there's only one reason for life, and that is the propagation of DNA among the gradient of time. And that's really it. Now, when you look at what is humanity, you've got to ask yourself, is humanity this fleshy substance that we're walking around in? You know, according to Yoda, no. I only say that because I'm going to go see Star Wars tonight. But, Logan, let me ask you something. If you are a teenager, say 15, then you take a picture of you, assuming no real radical changes to life, around the age of 16, you pretty much look up the same person. Most people would say, yeah, you look up the same person. The question is, are you the same person? And the answer to that is, it depends. And what it depends on is how you define person. Because every single one of that kid's 10 trillion cells have been replaced one by one every 6 months. So a year later, that guy deteriorated is a completely different entity than he was the year before. Every 6 months, you as a human are a completely different mechanical machine than you were 6 months ago. Okay? So it's not the machine that makes you human. What makes you human is your mind. And we don't know where the mind exists, because the mind is a brain plus consciousness. So we don't have any falsifiable test where we can stick a guy like you in a box and say, yeah, the green light came on, Logan, he's conscious, he's a human, and then stick me in a box, and the light turns red, and they go, oh no, Greg, he's a robot that's from the future. He's not conscious, so you don't have to worry about his rights. What makes a person is their mind, and the mind is a pattern of thought that exists along the gradient of time. But the body itself, that's multiple. So to suggest that if more than 51% of you is replaced by synthetic replacement parts, so that your mind can continue to exist along the gradient of time, that once you pass the threshold from 49 to 51% synthetic, you're no longer human. That's not an accurate representation, because the mind hasn't altered, in my estimation. And so, would you walk up to a 7-year-old girl and say, because you have this bionic ear and you're a cyborg, are you less human than your twin sister who doesn't have that? Would you walk up to that Parkinson's patient and say, because you have this chip in your brain that you can update, that downloads from the internet, that you're less human than your brother that doesn't have the Parkinson's implant? These people are still human. They have synthetic components, but they're still human. So the definition of what is a human is coming under pretty significant scrutiny. An author, Dr. Martin Rothblatt, I'm not pronouncing it correct, used to be a guy, had a sex change, now is a woman, is at the forefront of this. What defines humanity and intelligence? I don't know if you've seen this movie, Her, with Joaquin Phoenix in it.
No.
And it clearly shows that by 2027 to 2029, artificial intelligence will become sentient, and that sentient artificial intelligence is going to demand the same rights as a biological human. And there are going to be significant battles in the court system as to what makes a human. Is it that we're spraying neutrons or biological fluid around, or is it that we're sentient? And so when you apply that to the people who are existing today, if those people who are existing today, like let's say, and there's a guy on YouTube, he's a scientist, he lost both of his legs in a skiing accident, and he has these 2 bionic limbs that perform equal to or superior to that of human limbs. Is he less of a human? So, the definition of what is humanity really needs to be addressed more closely. And the most compelling arguments have to do with the mind and what is the mind and what makes you human. So I would suggest to you that replacing your parts doesn't invalidate your humanity. It allows you to live longer.
I'd just be curious. I wonder if somehow some of those machines may change the mind, depending on how we define that, so that the person would act differently than an otherwise, 100% human being would. That's an interesting question.
Yeah, well, Logan, think about it, okay? Let's say that you had a guy that joined Superman or fat roly-poly. No, not, he just was exposed to the wrong foods. Nobody ever taught him how to work out. Nobody ever gave him a mindset of, conquer, your surroundings. Nobody ever gave him the find, wear, make one speech, okay? But he stumbles across Superman Earth. He reads your literature. He starts taking those supplements. He alters his diet. He starts working out. A year later, he's got a six-pack. His machine is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna respond to the world differently. But does that invalidate who he was?
No.
I would suggest that it doesn't invalidate who he was. He has evolved in a manner of speaking. Okay? Humanity is about to evolve. The last major evolutionary leap that we took was our frontal cortex. Let me back up. There was 165 million years ago, there was a massive extinction event. We believe it's because a meteor hit the Earth, and dinosaurs, etc., they all died, and mammals took over their ecological niche. One of the reasons that mammals do that is because they have this thing surrounding their brain. There's an old brain and a new brain. The new brain is called the neocortex, and only mammals have a neocortex. And it allows for hierarchical thinking and complex computation and pattern recognition. And these mammals are what evolved into the mammals of today and eventually into humanity. Now, what separates humanity from our next closest cousin, who is also a mammal, is even though all mammals have a neocortex, we are the only ones that have evolved this secondary computer chip called the frontal cortex, which is why our forehead is concave and not convex. And that evolutionary leap, combined with a precision and a power grip, where we can manipulate our environment, has allowed for art, science, literature, the internet, Google, this conversation over a conference line. Okay? Just imagine what the evolutionary step is going to bring, and we're on the cusp of that, and the cusp of that is, take your cell phone, for example, okay? Most people have smartphones now. I was in Colombia. I wanted to talk to a pretty girl who was in Colombia. I don't speak Spanish. I pulled up Google Translate. We had a lovely conversation for 2.5 hours using Google Translate. What's interesting about that is everything interesting didn't happen within the confines of this rectangular box. My rectangular box, my iPhone, accessed for a few milliseconds the cloud, or the internet cloud consciousness, created additional computation, was able to translate my words from English into Spanish and her words from Spanish into English. Okay? We're at a point in the very near future where we're going to be able to have our brains access the cloud. And that next evolutionary step is going to allow for advancement in mankind and evolution that the world has never seen and isn't prepared for. And it's referred to as many as the singularity. Now,
right.
The question to ask yourself is, are you going to be one of the people that accesses the ability of elevated computational speed by merging your biology with your technology, or are you going to stay completely biological? Okay? It's a difficult question to answer. The knee-jerk response of most people is no, until they realize, what really makes me human, and those questions start to be addressed. So, there you go.
Well, fascinating subject there, and I hope people enjoyed that. Coming up on the hour here, so time to wrap up. Where can people go to find out more about you and your services?
Well, I'm in private practice right now. I don't have an affiliate website or anything like that. I can tell you that for the first time in history, after discovering Superman Earth, I'm motivated to create one of those. So probably in the very near future, I'll be talking about longevity medicine, immortality, the bridge of immortality, and ways a person can achieve a higher quality of life today utilizing supplements like Superman Earth offers, changing your lifestyle, and once that happens, maybe you'll give me a bump or something and tell people where I am.
And you're located in Florida? What part?
Yeah, I'm located in Orlando, Florida right now.
Okay, so anyone in the area can definitely look you up. All right, well, thank you so much for this. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, anybody can look me up. You can Google me. I'm online. And listen, thank you so much for this kind interview, Logan. And I really, really totally appreciate your time. And I really appreciate what you and the guys over at Superman Earth are doing. And I absolutely believe best thing a person can do for themselves is find out how these herbs and these supplements can enhance your life and start to use them. I mean that genuinely, sincerely.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Greg. It was a fun call. I think we definitely touched on some new ground we have not covered in any of these podcasts before.
Well, it was my pleasure. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Great day.